Program Advisory Committee had been discussing a change in IEP forms from the Orange County forms we use to the Riverside County forms, and I know some of them may have discussed with you concerns about training and such, and because of that, we have decided to put off any changes or considering changes until next year, and probably would look at doing them in January if there would be a change. Also had an opportunity to go down with our facilities folk and IT people and counselors to Mountain View School District. They were the only district that contacted me regarding space for our mental health clinic, and they showed us some very nice space. There's certainly room enough for the counselors, and we could configure 2 of the buildings up front for confidential space and to be able to see clients, so it would be well partitioned off from the rest of what's going on the school. So at this point, we're going to work with our facilities people to get some cost estimates on what it would cost to redesign that space and bring back information to you. Also, a concern was voiced during our joint superintendent PAC-FAC meeting regarding whether there was a conflict of interest for a district school board member to be employed by WESELPA. And the law firm of Chidester & Associates reviewed this issue and determined that there was no conflict of interest either under the Political Reform Act or Government Code 1090. So we got clarification on that. Any questions?
Thank you, John. I'll move to discussion items. B1, self-fiscal transfer. Elliot?
Good morning. We have just 2 transfers that we're basically giving notification of. It's the A is the first, is the 11-12 third quarter non-public school agency export transfer in the amount of $1,322,004, and it is a transfer for April, and that is being by the as well as the 11-12 mid-year SBCSS facility cost transfer in the amount of $137,450. And again, that is being reviewed with the finance. So this is just a notification item of those transfers will be processed. Any questions?
I just want to provide a reminder that Altaloma, Central, Cucamonga, Mountain View, and the Uvalde school districts need to appoint a new community advisory committee representative. The term would be from July 2012 to June 2014. And since this does require a board action for appointment, just wanted to kind of give people a heads up so that they could get the process started in time to get people on board for our first meeting, which is in August.
It is time for the CAC annual report. My understanding is that Lieutenant Taylor was unable to be here this morning, but has designated a representative. And Ms. Mendoza, you're doing the CAC annual report?
Yes, this is what I got this morning, and I haven't fully read it. I haven't read it at all, so I might stumble over a little bit. Basically, this is from Martina, and it's a CAC report. It says, I was appointed as chair of the Community Advisory Committee at the August meeting of 2011. There had been no quorum in both April or May of 2011, and so no presentation and meeting dates have been set up for the new school year, nor CAC chair position filled at the first meeting in August. We set out to get meetings, presentations approved on the next agenda in September and quickly got prepared for a presentation in October. On inclusion, I called for an executive committee meeting in October in order to prepare for presentations approved by the CAC in both October and November. Unfortunately, no executive committee members showed up. Mr. Sorino, CAC member from Etiwanda, was in attendance, as was Mo Mendoza, an ex officio, so no voting member of the CAC and other members of the public attended. Most members did attend the presentation on inclusion in October, with some members giving material to WESELPA staff in order to prepare for the presentation. I again called for an executive committee meeting in November to prepare for the presentation scheduled that month and approved by CAC members, and again, no executive committee members showed up. Mo Mendoza did attend this meeting again, did several members of the public. In fact, I learned that the room had been canceled by WESELPA staff, namely Karen Johnson, for the presentation on transition scheduling in November, on the very day I had called for an executive committee meeting to discuss, prepare for the presentation. The day the executive committee meeting, Ms. Riley sent out an email to all CAC members canceling the meeting, as well as the presentation. On the agenda for the executive committee meeting in November was a letter from the whole PTA recommending appointment of Dave Palmer to the CAC as public-private agency member. Our next meeting of the full CAC was in January. Here again, I placed an agenda recommending Dave Palmer to the CAC as public and private agency, as well as discussing the next several back-to-back presentations of resource fair in February, Life After High School in April, and then art and writing in May. Several items were added to the agenda under the recommendation of Dave Palmer as CAC member, including an email from OPEC asking when the CAC meeting and stating they wanted to come be part of the meeting. Under the particular agenda, a list of 3 steps were added under the bylaw that discusses recommending a private public agency CAC member. This thoroughly confused CAC members. The only thing addressing recommending a CAC public-private agency member is listed in the bylaws itself. I certainly had not added this additional confusing information, rather WESELPA staff had. Because of all of this confusion, as well as the WESELPA administrator stating that the whole PTA where Dave Palmer had a recommendation letter from wasn't affiliated with the California State PTA, the majority of the CAC members tabled this item. During discussion of both Life After High School and the resource fair, we discussed all agencies wanting to be part of this event being able to have a table. The resource fair in February went very well. All agencies were welcome. Sadly, the Life After High School event, my request to have an agency have a table went unheard by the WESELPA staff. There were also some issues with the art and writing that came to my attention regarding non-public schools, vendors, with WESELPA not receiving materials to enter the contest. My third attempt to call an executive committee meeting simply to again get a recommendation for Dave Palmer to be part of the CAC. As a private public agency member did not occur. We were to meet after resource fair in February for half an hour. Several members did not want to do this because they said they wanted to have ample time at the presentation, but the meeting was set for the after the resource fair. Finally, I had a quorum with enough people from the executive committee in the room. I opened the meeting and asked for a motion to accept the agenda. The secretary of the CAC, Ms. Nolt from El Toloma, stated she would not accept the agenda and that she did not want to have the meeting on this evening and didn't understand why this item was on the agenda. A discussion proceeded for the next 15 minutes about how this was a bad time to have a meeting after a presentation, and then the members of the executive committee left the room, leaving behind members of the public. The members of the public spoke and gave public comment, and then we left. 3 attempts at the executive committee meetings this past school year without success. I called for a CAC meeting at the request of WESELPA staff prior to this meeting today because WESELPA staff said certain items were being approved by the superintendents that the CAC must see. After seeking feedback from the CAC members with only a few responding to their availability and trying to make myself available, WESELPA staff all put to make myself available. WESELPA staff all but insisted we meet during the Life After High School presentation. This was puzzling to me since 2 months prior at the resource fair, members were upset that I had scheduled a meeting after the resource fair. Apparently members were fine doing a meeting during the presentation of Life After High School. So after much, I have no idea what that says, I called for a meeting an hour into the presentation so I would be afforded the opportunity to see the presentation. Unfortunately, the agenda was not posted by WESELPA staff 72 hours prior to the meeting. The meeting does not qualify as a special or emergency meeting either. Again, I place on the agenda the item of recommending Dave Palmer as public-private agency member on the agenda with a letter from the whole PTA including in the material. During this item, Ms. Knoll pulled out a paper with a list of steps and a timeline to recommend a person from a public or private agency to be on the CAC. She passed this out to members and a motion was made, seconded and approved to utilize this timeline. After speaking with the union sister after the meeting, I realized that this item was out of order. The CAC cannot change the bylaws, which include process and procedures, unless a standing committee is held and the superintendents approve such changes. I immediately let the CAC know that I was rescinding this motion and have asked fellow CAC members for dates they are available to hold a standing committee meeting of the local plan review and legislation committee, 7.2.4. Here we will discuss such changes, CAC bylaws, and adding processes and or procedures of the CAC bylaws. I hope to have such a meeting in the next few weeks. Being the chair of the WESELPA CAC has been challenging. It seems my predecessors would have WESELPA staff develop all agendas and coordinate all meetings. Taking leadership over this dynamic has been a struggle. I have called for meetings that WESELPA staff have canceled or canceled room reservations for. I have created and developed agendas that have been edited by WESELPA staff. I have included content that has been excluded by WESELPA staff. I can only hope that when the WESELPA administrator is chosen for the next school year, this dynamic can finally shift. For the district who will be appointed a CAC member, I would encourage you again, as I have in the past, to choose parents who are willing to attend meetings and are willing to read the CAC bylaws, the Brown Act, the Roberts Rules of Order, adhere to them. I would encourage you to reach out to parents of children with special needs by posting a flyer, recruiting parents that are interested in being a part of the CAC rather than simply allowing your special education directors to handpick a parent and give that name to the school board. I would encourage you to have your boards of trustees interview parents that are interested. If you have parents on the CAC that care about using taxpayer dollars wisely, this can only help the superintendents here, as we are merely an advisory board. With parents who have this kind of mindset, we are more likely to give you good advice and wise counsel. Thank you for your time. And this is from Martina that she emailed me this morning.
Thank you for filling in and delivering the report.
Item B4, Superintendent's Council Communications Class, Ms. Riley.
At our joint meeting, Dr. Hammond had requested that we look into developing some communication protocol, and I need to, I kind of researched this area and became perhaps more confused. So I wanted some guidance from the Superintendent Council as to exactly how you want to focus this. Is this communication protocols, for meetings, for written communications, for our website, the media? Is this something where we're going to focus on setting up a designated spokesperson, rules for, how do we go about, setting out a coordinated vision?
I can probably clarify that a little bit. Communication probably wasn't the right word to use. I added something after
It's
that.
a long
Yeah. I think for me, and I might be the only one who's confused about it, is if a complaint comes forward or some type of concern comes forward to the council, what mechanism of communication takes place as a result, whether it's simply acknowledging receipt of a letter and that we're looking into something and some form of closure will be brought forward, days, weeks later. Is that something that happens with staff? Is that something that happens with the chairperson? Is that something that happens, with a subcommittee here? And, we don't meet that frequently. We meet every 6 weeks or whatever the frequency is. And so the timeliness of us being able to be responsive to our stakeholders, is just something I wanted to discuss and possibly have addressed. It was more on the issue of concerns and complaints coming forward. How are we going to communicate those back?
Any other superintendent comments? We reach section C, which is the time on the agenda for public comment. This is the time and place for the general.
I'm sorry. Is there any closure to this topic here on number 4? I was hoping that there would be some form of discussion to say what our preference would be, because so I don't know if there's anything that the other superintendents would like to share. It's something that should be tasked to the staff to come forward with a recommendation for us to consider. Do you have any recommendation? My only recommendation is that we have some form of responsiveness. It's not clear to me how we respond to concerns or complaints. That's all. And I don't know if we have something that I'm just not aware of, and that can be shared with me, and I'm happy to look at that and probably have an opinion after I review it. But I don't know if the other superintendents have a preference in regards to concerns or complaints come forward, what mechanism we have to respond to it.
Maybe that's something we can go to the new person.
With the new director, to bring a recommendation forward for us to consider. Yeah. So that could possibly be a goal for a task.
I think it's going to be nice since we have an experienced level administrators to have her develop guidelines or recommendations that we can look at.
We have another meeting? We have a meeting?
Sure. We can look at, at least have a draft we look at and discuss before this person comes in. Whether we approve it or not, at least it's one more chance for discussion with everyone who's here.
That would be great.
Some input.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. And you said to me for the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. That provides some time. And then I do agree with the new director coming on board. We need to pretend that could be something that kind of a baton being passed to the new director. Maybe have an expectation that that can be in place prior to the 16 weeks. Possibly.
And we would want to get his input.
Input, yeah. Absolutely.
Right, so I heard some people that Jimmy would for further discussion, and then also perhaps we would like to have copies of anything that's currently in place, as a reminder what current universal complaint procedures are in place now.
Yeah, and I think what Sean was referring to, perhaps the recommendation of guidelines in regards to what a good practice would be in regards to just being responsive to concerns that come forward from the council.
I think it's important to know what the current practice is, even though it's informal, maybe informal what you do, what you have done, because then that can also be a piece of documentation and pass on to the new director to the past practice. What you may have is a recommendation, and then what the new person comes in, they want to be able to employ, and also get feedback from the superintendent.
And then you would also give your input on potential revisions to it, right, as far as your
If she's bringing back guidelines, though,
Yeah, no, thank you. I think really the guideline that I'm looking for is just some form of acknowledgement of receipt of the concern, whether it be in writing or it be, via public comment, and then some way of reporting back to us, not necessarily through a formal report, but it could be simply part of the communications element of the agenda that, concerns were brought forward and this is how we respond. So there's some type of closure. I know sometimes they come in writing, sometimes they come very formally, sometimes they're informal, sometimes they're just completely public comment. But there's a way that we know as a council that the issues have been responded to.
Okay.
Any other superintendent comments? All right, then public comment. This is the time and place for the general public to address the superintendent's council. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or less for each speaker, and maximum of 3 minutes for each agenda item. Once the business portion of the meeting commences, no further public input will be addressed. I do have several parts. I will begin with items not on the agenda but under the purview of this board. And our first speaker will be Mr. David Palmer regarding public records.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you, Mr. Hammond, for actually asking for discussion on a discussion item that's on the agenda. I appreciate that. And actually, because the other issue, the conflict of interest, I was the one who brought that forward with public comment at the last one, and I did ask for a council opinion. Had I not been here today, I might not have heard anything. And still, I've only brought up one issue. There's actually 4 conflicts of interest that I see that exist in that relationship, and I've only had the opportunity to bring forth the one at the last public meeting. So, and it'd been nice to know if I was ever going to receive any kind of response to my concern that I brought forward. So I appreciate that this is a discussion item, that something will happen about it. But the reason that I want to give public comment today is just regarding the public records request. I appreciate Ms. Labuni and her leadership at Central School District and them being proactive, and the new laws that are enacted. I saw on the board agenda this last week that they are revising and their laws. And specifically, I would ask that WESELPA also be doing that, because there's been some confusion over what written information is part of the public records information. And if I could just read from the agenda of Central School District's board meeting last week where they addressed it, they said writing means any handwriting, typewriting, printing, photostating, photographing, transmitting by electronic mail or facsimile, and every other means of recording upon any tangible thing, any form of communication or representation, including letters, words, pictures, sounds, or symbols, or combinations thereof, and any record thereby created, regardless of the manner in which the record has been stored. And so we have made public record requests, or there have been public record requests made, and they have not been honored because they were emails, but I think that that is allowable under the law, at least by how my district is interpreting that. So again, thank you, Ms. Labudi.
Mr. Palmer, the next item of motion is public comment.
Somebody else, my throat still hurts from reading. Can I go fast?
All right.
Thank you.
Put those aside.
I don't want to.
You have 3 cards, Mo, so I'll put those all aside for now. We have items on the agenda, E2, Sharon Holt.
Thank you. I am a parent representing the Altamont School District, and I'm kind of new to the CAC board. My little one has only been in the district for a couple of years, and I have also been here for a couple of years. And I see our meeting is run so different from yours. I mean, I look at this and say, oh, I think that's how it's supposed to be. You're calm, you talk to each other, there's communication, you're getting through an agenda. Our meeting, on the other hand, is blurting, a lot of talking from the public, people running over often and whispering in the ear of the chairperson, and we are unable to get through anything. We struggle. And I'm very action-oriented, so I come in with, I have an idea. I see that you want to do this, and I see that you don't want to do this, and instead of fight for another 45 minutes just to table an issue, here's a process. Let's try this. This might work. Timeline kind of written out. It's not really working for me. Since then, I've had emails and complaints about breaking rules, breaking laws, district attorneys, you name it. I yesterday asked Joan, I was dealing with some personal issues with my daughter. I asked her, can you look at this? If I am breaking a rule, a Brown Act violation, I want to know, and I want to address the person. I can't do it right now. Would you do it for me? She checked for me, said it wasn't, she addressed it. I don't know. I could be in Brown Act jail someday. I'm not sure. But the point is, I would like for you, if you wouldn't mind, to consider providing a facilitator for that meeting so that we could do what it is that we're supposed to do to help our community and our children. Thank you.
The next one also on item 2, and you're going to have to help me with the correct.
It's fine.
Excuse my.
We'll start. I'm going to read, so I don't ramble the rest of you. First, I think I want to agree with what Sharon says, too. I think it would be great if we can be provided some help and support to make some of our issues go forward. And then I'll just go on. I wanted to comment on this current issue where members of the CAC are being accused of bypassing a CAC bylaw in the context of recommending a new member from a public-private agency. In fact, this board wants to ensure that all agencies are given a chance to be a part of the CAC. To me, this is in the spirit of the Brown Act. It seems appropriate to put in place a process that would allow all agencies to demonstrate an interest in the education of the children sometimes they provide services for. This is not a sudden decision. As documents show, this process has been in the works for a while. For various reasons, the board has not been able to get the item move forward in the past. Since it has come back on the agenda, members have consistently indicated that going forward they would like a process in place. I can assure you there is no personal agenda in this. In fact, I called Mr. Palmer to tell him that there was nothing personal, as has been indicated several times, and for him to understand that this is about a process being put in place and nothing else. In fact, I appreciate that we just saw an example of another process being asked to put in place, just to be able to follow up on things that are happening. Unfortunately, this controversy sort of brings to the fore a certain dysfunctional nature of the CAC. With constant compliance complaints, investigations, it is hard to create an atmosphere where volunteers like us can move forward in helping parents and children get the best of their educational hopes and aspirations. For me, the best feeling comes when I talk to a parent and help him or her resolve issues regarding their child. Again, a few weeks ago, a parent called me and described some issues she was having with her 6th grader. Even though I should be used to it, I was disturbed when she asked me if it was time to take an advocate to her IEP. I told her, not yet. Let's try to resolve it where it matters, teachers, principal, and so on. And, so we worked on it. It took some time, but I am happy to report that it turned out that miscommunication had led to some of the issues going out of hand, and we were able to, the school district is working with the family and the issues are being resolved. Now I understand that all situations don't resolve quite that easily, but it is important to start with the intent of positive collaboration and not should I get an advocate. That leads nowhere and serves no one. This is my way and I will stick by it as my first response. If it needs to go further, I will also help parents understand educational opportunities and the resources that they have for their children. But I will not let them subscribe to the view that teachers, principals, administrators wake up in the morning planning retaliation against children and their families. I don't do conspiracies. Finally, I just want to thank Joan for her exceptional services to children and families. Her incredible depth of knowledge and willingness to explain the process to others who are learning, as is often evident in YouTube videos, is hard to beat. Those are big shoes to fill. I wish Leadership Associates feel that. Thank you for letting me go over.
Thank you. We have any last public comment on item B2 and Eden?
Navon. I don't have anything planned and what to say. I thought about it on my way over. But I am here to actually second what Sharon has just asked for and requested for. On April 10th, we had a Brown Act presentation by Sam Crow, and Dr. Hammond, if you could thank him again for us, I would appreciate it. Unfortunately, it was in videotape and put on YouTube, as most of the meetings are, and unfortunately, we only had a couple of people in public, and I wish we would have had a lot more. So again, on April 17th, we had our meeting, and this is very simple. All we want is we want to move forward. And as I have always said, the only enemy in this journey is time, and we're losing a lot of time. We want to give the opportunity to all and many agencies, and all we want to do is just put a process in place. Everything is set to go. Our chairperson, we all took the motion, everything was fine. I emailed our chairperson, we all emailed. Unfortunately, she did not respond to some of our questions. And I also asked her if we could ask Sam Crow, since he has offered his support, to clarify some things at any time he would like to. And I didn't get an answer. I know she's very busy like all of us. But we do have, and Christy, is 17, that meeting already on YouTube posted? The one we had, the last one?
Yes.
Is it already? Okay, so I would ask if you can all view it, just to, if you have any questions also. And thank you for that, Christy.
Sure.
But that's just my request. We want to move forward. It's very simple. We've all been through the process of being interviewed, to be selected for CAC representative. We've done it a few times, some of us. And all we want to do is just move forward. So again, I second, and I am asking also for what Sharon has just brought forward. And I just, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you back in voice, I'm reading out the agenda cards or both yours, item B4 and item B2.
Okay, with B2, the CAC district representatives, I did B2.
It's B4, Superintendent Council Communication Protocols, and B2, SELPA fee for service.
Okay, SELPA fee for services, I'd like to do that like normally when the agenda items brought up.
I'd be happy to give you 3 minutes for each agenda item, but my understanding is that all public comment needs to be made at this time, and that's
Right,
what's posted,
public
so-
comment I'll do now, but for E4, I'd like to do it at that time, and you guys can call and discuss it, like always. With E4, the first thing that I'd like to say is, I thought Dr. Thomas was going to be here. Could you please tell him that if he'd like letters that I've written to him before in the past, if he has not responded back, I have them. And he is more than welcome to make copies, but I'm not going to pay out of my pocket to make copies of letters that he's thrown away and not responded back. So if you could reiterate that to him, I'd appreciate that. My other comment about B4 is that I'm really concerned with the communication protocol. I have written so many letters, okay, and the final straw came on the 17th before the CAC meeting, okay, because something wasn't changed on the agenda minutes, once again, deliberately and intentionally by Joan Riley. I put in a call to Dr. Thomas, and I asked him point blank, what are you going to do? I said, it's happening again. And I said, I can't make this meeting because I have things that I have to do with my mother that supersedes this CAC meeting. I said, I'm tired of it. It's deliberate. It's intentional. We already made a motion to have those minutes changed, and they were supposed to be changed appropriately, and they were not done. And he remarked that he doesn't have any communication from me in letter format at all. I give you guys all the same letters that I give him. He doesn't respond to any of them. Then he proceeded to raise his voice at me and tell me that I am not answering the attorney that's doing the investigation's phone calls. Okay, I lost it at that point because personally, nobody's ever called me on any of my letters that I've written ever. Okay, no attorney, nobody has. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody has ever contacted me, written me, or anything. I said, you show me a certified letter that I have signed for, or you have attempted to reach me by my home address as a last resort, and then I will take my words back. Other than that, nobody has contacted me about any of my letters or anything for a response back from you, superintendent, or the county. And his words were, I'm not responsible. I'm not supposed to report back to you. I said, then who is? He told me to 10 superintendents. I said, well, if it's the 10 superintendents, they haven't responded back either. I said, do you really think these 10 superintendents are going to get together to respond to my letter? And he says, well, if they don't, they have board of trustees that are responsible for them. So in other words, basically, Dr. Thomas is telling me to go to all your board meetings. I'm sure you guys do not want me at your board meetings. But if my letters aren't responded, I will personally go to all your board meetings. I will, okay? Because I am tired of it and I want something done, okay? And I'd like a few more minutes. The current practice now, just to let you guys know, is not responding to any
You
correspondence.
have a card that just says public comment, so is what you're going to say maybe would fit in with that?
No, it fits in with the protocol, because these are things that the superintendents mentioned on before. The current practice is not responding back to the correspondence or letters that people write, okay, that would like an answer back on something of an issue, okay? Then the past practice is the same thing, not responding, okay? What I'm asking you guys to do is form an ad hoc committee, come up with some ideas and some protocols, at least 3 to 5 ideas. The next superintendent council meeting, what I want to see is an action item of one of those being accepted of what the steps are going to be to respond to letters. That's what I'm asking. Been asking it for years. It's pretty simple to do, and I really don't understand why you guys can't do it. Okay? You guys are as dysfunctional as the CAC board.
I'm going to need to call time here, Mo, so.
But I would like to see that done.
It is duly noted for the record.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Would you like to also make your comments for general public comment that were not on an agenda item?
Basically, the public comments is regarding the CAC. We are having issues at the CAC. We are dysfunctional, okay? It's CAC member after CAC member, Joan Riley interfering and contradicting to get other CAC members riled up, and you can see it on YouTube. Not only that, the one issue that we're having a major problem with is from 2008. If you go back and read all the CAC minutes, agenda items, you will see it for yourself. We have been trying to get a non-public agency on the CAC board, okay? Maybe it's my fault because I read everything and I keep everything. I don't know. But I'm getting fed up with the fact that every time it becomes an agenda and an action item, it gets thrown out. Every single time. Now it's because they want a process. Well, guess what? In 2009, the end of 2009, the process was a letter from a non-public agency specifying why or if they would like to be a non-public representative on the CAC. Well, now all of a sudden that's not good enough because we are getting letters. But every time we get letters, there are people of CAC members that other CAC members don't like. I'm sorry. That's not their problem or their fault, okay? If other non-public agencies don't want to be a CAC rep, then so be it. You can't force them. But when we have people like Dave Palmer, okay, Dave Palmer, he's a pastor. You're trying to tell me that people are going to object to that? He did everything he was supposed to do. He has written letters. There has been action items on the agenda for this. And over again, it's thrown out. Okay, because now they want another process. How many processes do there have to be? We have CAC board members that were there during this long process, and they're board members again. And we're still having issues. So something does need to be done, and a mediator would be great. If a mediator could read all the CAC minutes and agendas like I did, they'll see the same thing that I see, okay? This is something that has been ongoing since, 2008, and it really needs to stop. We've been asking for a representative from a non-profit organization on the CAC, and it hasn't happened. And we're in 2012, just to let you guys know. That's an awfully long time of a process. That is dysfunction, if you ask me. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one final card for items not on the agenda from Edith. Did you have additional?
You want to try my last name? I just want to give a few words of, I don't know if this is Joan's last meeting here today, but the superintendent's one more. In case if I don't make it, I just want to say, 11 years ago, I started my journey with my son, and I was not happy. It didn't start on the right track. I was bringing an advocate and so on. And then I got in there and volunteered in my classrooms, and I saw what went on, and I got to know my child. I thought I knew my child, but I didn't. I got in there, I started volunteering very closely with my schools. I was in school site councils, president for this, for that, as I'm sure many and all these parents are involved with. And I got to see that, lack of communication, and my ego was getting in front of everything. And it was starting to be about what I wanted for my child, and not what my child really needed. And as God would want us to say, forgive and move forward and set good examples, and I moved on. I started doing that. I came on board. I started learning about the support from my district, from self, and today I just want to thank Joan for her service and for hard work, and I wish you could take me with you. And I just want to say that you have touched, as much as negativity that goes on, I know you have touched a lot of lives, and you have done so much for many, many kids. My son is one of them, and I pray to God he continues the same way. I want you to know that we appreciate you very much, and we appreciate every superintendent that is here today. And I just want to give you a thank you on behalf of my son and a lot of children and parents out there. Again, I got to see the picture differently, and I know that if we want our children to be positive to society, we need to be positive. Parents, yes, not everything's perfect, and we are going to have battles, but always, I don't know why I'm bringing God again, but it's what he wants us to do, to forgive, to move forward, and to be a family, because we're all a family here as we get together all the time. So, Joan, thank you so much for everything that you've done in all these years, and I hope you have a great retirement.
I am going to be moving on to the business portion, and I know here it says in writing that once the business portion meeting commences, no further public input will be addressed. So I would like to give a final opportunity to any members of the public, and this is one of those items. Be happy to take your E2.
Okay, just to let you know, I'll talk about it, but just to let you know, watch the YouTubes that she does. Point blank, I have talked, you guys have gone before an agenda item, and then afterwards I have talked, okay?
That could well be, and I have to get at those meetings, but I do feel that we follow resolution print here. So I promise you we can remember when we get to E2. So when your comments can be taken into consideration. Would you also like to?
Yeah, I didn't write down, and I wanted, if I'm allowed, I know I should have wrote it down, but I just,
We have not left public comment.
Okay.
We will allow you to speak. I'm going to.
Sure. Thank
you.
So in other words, if I'm talking about an agenda item, you guys aren't going to probably answer me back all of a sudden, right? Because I'm doing it during public comment. Is this how this is going to go now?
I know that the superintendent's council can take notes and respond if they choose, but they're not required to.
Okay, that's why I talked during the agenda item, because I'd like these questions answered like always in the past. So that's what I'm asking right now. Basically, on E2, the WESELPA fee for service, I'm a little bit confused by it, because you have a program specialist, and it says 0.15% of her base pay is going towards the behavior specialist for 6 students, which equals $21,882. So I'm curious to know, how much money does this employee make at 100%? Because it seems like we might have a very overpaid program specialist. Because we're talking 0.15%, 6 kids, and we're paying her $3,647 for behavioral services. Not only that, it really doesn't specify what the behavioral services are that she's doing for the $3,647. And also in the past, I've asked who the program the behavioral specialist is. And I'm asking again who the behavioral specialist is. How much is 100% of her pay? Because I'm really confused by how this is written. It's not well written at all. It's very confusing. Well, you
When we
guys.
get to that agenda item, we'll see if we can address those issues.
Well, at this time, I'd like to say, basically, you are violating my right on an agenda item. And I'm very offended by it, because in the past, you have 10 superintendents here that have sat here before. When I've done agenda items, and I've done them during the agenda time, and the questions are answered back to me.
All right, thank you.
Hi. Yes,
State your name.
I'm Liz Ritchie. Yeah. I just wanted to refer back to a meeting that I attended back in February 28th, where I came in a little late. I sat down and, because I was at a, what was that? You guys had a little thing going on over here with all the Resource services. fair. Resource fair, yeah. So I thought it was really good because I want to be a parent that gets involved. I have 2 kids with special needs, and I came down and sat down, and there were other people sitting here as well. Sat down and the meeting started. Again, this is probably the second meeting that I attended with the CAC, and all of a sudden they started talking back and forth, fighting with each other. That side of the room got up and left, started saying things to each other. We over here, parents were like, "What's going on? Did we do something bad?" Again, I don't know what was going on before the meeting. All I can tell you is from a parent point of view, I felt disrespected because I wasn't even able to, if I wanted to say something, I wasn't even able to say anything. They just got up and left and disrespected me as a parent. And so I do agree with what both of you guys are saying. We do need to have some kind of mediator, I don't know, because I think as other parents that want to get involved, I saw the parents that got scared. They didn't. I felt like I was in one of those shows, what is it called? One of those reality shows. And I'm like, it shouldn't be this way. So I just wanted to let you guys know that yes, we do need a facilitator. Yes, and that we need to show respect for each other, whether it be from this side or that side, parents or not parents. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Joan, is the process at CAC is going to consider something for the CAC to address on the agenda?
Yes, we are required to follow the Brown Act, so the CAC agenda is posted 72 hours before, and the agenda is followed. However, if the agenda at that particular meeting, there was no motion to accept the agenda.
Thank you. All right, any further public comment? All right, we're moving to the business portion of our meeting, and the business consent agenda. A motion regarding the business consent agenda. Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Business action items. Join the export contribution rate.
Okay, this is the time of the year that we're going ahead and we're preparing our rates for next year. As probably all have read over this, and we can go into it in a lot of detail if you want a little bit more information. But WESELPA is proposing the 12-13 export contribution rate to be established at the 90% of the projected NCSA expenditures, which is what we did last year in order to take a look at the offset of the positive trends for non-private schools and agencies. As you can see, the rate has gone down by $1.50 from $29 to $27.50 per ADA. If you take a look at the second page, you'll see where I made the adjustments for on NPSNP at the 90% rate. It calculates about $27.50. This takes into consideration some of the movement of staff that we've had with mental health, as well as the decrease in ADA presented by there were some significant changes to our future service budget for next year. These are the projected rate for next year, which only has one service, and the services are behavior specialist services. That's a service that is actually on the IEP. It's an IEP decision that there are behavior specialist services that are required for that student. And we currently are providing services by basically a fifth of an FTE of 3 of our program specialists. So those program specialists, and I'm going to go ahead and give you their names because that's kind of where we're at. It's Garth Arnett, Christina McCooljan, and Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer Johnson has just accepted a position outside of WESELPA, so that will be replaced by the new person when we actually get a person to replace her. Again, these are the projections for next year. So we have 5% of each of these 3 program specialists identified in our budget for next year. So as you can see, that if it's 5% of each one of those, it's a 0.15 FTE of the total program specialist. So these, we're continuing to have the same rate that we had last year. What had happened in the past, let me just maybe kind of refresh your memories here a little bit on this. We used to have a counseling fee for service that was also in here, and all of those fee for services has moved over to the mental health budget, and there is not a per se a fee for service. It's basically dependent on several different situations. So the only fee for service that there is still at the WESELPA is this behavior specialist, and we're recommending that the rates be continuing at the $3,647 per student. Per service.
So it's a portion of staff salary that makes up this total budget.
Correct.
If there were an individual student at an IEP meeting that needed additional service, that would be provided?
That is correct, as long as it would be on the IEP. We take a look at what the services that are provided based on our December 1 count and our April 1 count. So we take the average of those to determine what the actual
Additional questions?
And just to get further clarity, when I look at the number 3,600 per service, and then you look at the FT, this is not necessarily a percentage of one individual's FTE, correct?
It's 5% of 3 different staff members.
Okay, that's what I want to make certain that we're not, if we do the math and say 0.15 FTE equates to, I'm sorry, if we do the math and said 6 students times this 3,600 is 0.15 of somebody's FTE, that's not accurate. It's 3 individuals in this case.
Yes, it's a total of 0.15 FTEs that we have funded out of this budget to provide those current 6 services that we have.
Okay, very good. And I know this answer, I'm just going to say it so the public here. It's not like we have 142,000 a year's salary and behavior specialists, and 0.15 of their salary is, $21,000 because they're working with 6 individuals.
This is based on all of our
Let
salaries.
me repeat my question one more time. We do not have an individual behavior specialist being paid $142,000 a year because 0.15 of their salary is $21,000 to work with these 6
I would
individuals.
have to go back and take a look at that, because the total amount. I would say, let me clear this out.
The answer is no.
That makes that 42,000.
The answer might be yes.
There's 3 individuals at 0.5 FTE, correct?
Yes.
Which equates to 0.15 FTE.
Correct.
I think some people are interpreting this document that there's one individual that gets paid $3,600 per kid, 6 kids, and therefore gets $21,000 to work with these 6 kids, and therefore 0.15 of $21,000 is $140,000 salary. We don't have an individual like that.
No.
Okay.
And it's important to recall, this is our fee-for-service budget. Any monies that are
Understood.
not required, or if we receive over, let's say 10 kids instead, generate this fee and the fees, then it's returned back to the district.
Yeah, I think I'm clear on it because there's 3 individuals that equate to 0.15 FTE. I think how it was interpreted by some is that it's one individual that's 1.15. So
Because the kids are in different districts, we use the people assigned.
correct. Small people behavior specialists.
Thank you for that clarification. come up with some dollar amounts that we will be using for our pay for services, including the service that the student will be receiving. So we are talking about the SIA services. We have a total of 296 students in those services, and with a total of 29 teachers. That comes out to $2.4 million. We are also including 46.75 instructional assistants in that program, other pupil services, some classified support staff, cost for book supplies and conferences, plus the indirect cost, the 11-12 approved rate. That comes out to a total cost of $5.3 million. From that, we divided into the 296 students that are being served. It comes out to $17,963 per student. But then from there, we are reducing it by the deficit revenue limit. Also, we are reducing it by the 8602 allocation and the IDEA allocation. So it comes out to a total of $11,399 per student. Plus, we are increasing 4.5%, an estimated increase for 12-13 due to a step-in column and also health and welfare. So this service, SAI service for 12-13 is estimated to be at $11,912 per student. The next one is adopted PE services. We have a total of 5.85 APE teachers, plus the approved indirect cost rate comes out to $588,897. We are dividing that by a total of 287 students that are being served, comes out to 2,052. But with a 4.5 increase for the new year, this service will be at 2,144. And I skipped the speech. So if we go back to the speech therapies, we have a total of 19.95 teachers. We have a 2.25 language speech pathologists, assistants. We have some speech language aids. Plus we have the administrative support and some cost for supplies and contracts. We also add the indirect cost. This comes out to $2.5 million divided by the pupil served is 1,259, comes out to a cost per student of 1,986. With a 4.5 increase for the new year, the cost for speech service is $2,075 per student. And the one-on-one aids, we have a total of 21 one-on-one aids, and plus the indirect cost for that service comes up to $726,660 divided by 28 students that are being served with one-on-one aids comes out to $25,951. Plus the 4.5% increase for the new year, it comes out to a total cost of $27,190 for one-on-one aid. And the last page, we have a little summary of the difference in the new rate and the old rate, how much the schools were paying and how much they will be paying with the new approved rate. And all the districts need to be paying on some less amount based on the new rates that we are proposing.
This is the information I was asking for, how this would apply.
Any questions? Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Provider fees for services for Chafee District. And Joan, do we have any?
Yes. The Fiscal Oversight Committee is recommending that Chafee Joint Unified High School District use the same rates as established by Ontario Montclair School District. Essentially, Chafee only serves actually less than 5 regional students. And so the cost of even going through all of the calculations that Ontario Montclair did, including a time study for all of their administrative staff, would far outweigh the benefit of establishing a different rate. The concern that had been raised by BigNet was using the county rates. The districts were essentially overpaying the regional provider programs that were not county, and as a result, the cash on hand for districts was being reduced. And so by using a district-based rate, I think this brings the rate in line with the program costs, and that's what we're recommending. So the services that you see would be exactly the same as Ontario Montclair's rates.
Questions? Okay, do we have a motion? Move approval, is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, E5, this is the provider fee-for-service rates for the county program. And Janet was unable to be here this morning. We do have Rich Enough, business office with us, and Rich is bilingual, he speaks English and budget. So, thank you for being here, Rich. If we have additional questions. My understanding of this area is that after the PICNAT study, there was a group put together to do a study to align the rates with actual cost, and that group has been at work, has presented a conceptual framework, but actual dollar figures have not been seen by the Superintendent's Council, and this is the first time that is being presented. I feel bound to point out to you that if you accept the study, which aligns the rates with the services given, the high school districts are the winners. And that is because the fee-for-service rate connected with the community day schools. Community day schools have a different revenue limit than special ed programs do. When we do collect hours 5 and 6, the day school revenue limit, which brings more dollars into that program, and therefore the fee for that can be less. If you do make that change, it shifts those costs, total program costs, over to additional programs. So you will see old rate, new rate differences. I believe the options at this point are we can stay with the old, we can go with the new, we can table it and ask for more information. So, questions, discussion, or what's your pleasure? Have the program and finance councils seen this information? Have in fact seen this?
Yes.
And did they have any recommendation that they were sending forward to the superintendents, or whether this is recommendation?
I mean, the recommendation was when we presented, Janet had presented, and there was no concerns not moving it forward to superintendent.
Can you walk us through the increase in costs for intensive autism SAI? Why that's increasing by so much compared to the other rates?
And my understanding is that is primarily due to staffing that is in that program. In the intensive autism program, there are additional staff members so that there's a lower student-staff ratio, and that the actual charge for that program had not been allocated that way in the past, so that extra staff members was being spread across the program. In this model, it's all being charged directly to the students that are in that program. I'm looking at Rich and Peggy, are you nodding? Is that?
It's a 2-to-1 ratio. Because of classes primarily are preschool, there could be some fallout, because I don't know if Peggy could just, the classes pretty much are limited in size, but often preschool classes start out at the beginning of the year much smaller. And so I don't know if all of, Janet has to project the whole staff cost for a year based on the number of students that the class would eventually have, but I don't know if it always has
If
those.
you have a 2-to-1 ratio
Yeah.
mandated as part of the program, obviously that's going to be additional cost. I would say that in our budget assumptions, county has taken steps at the negotiations table to control costs. We will continue to have 5 furlough days for certificate being classified and 8 furlough days for welfare. And we will also have additional concessions made on health and welfare at the bargaining table. So our budget per se is not going up, but the way you allocate the costs looks very different depending on how you want to do that.
Do you have an example of how it would apply to the old? This is just anyway.
I think she's.
I'm sorry, can you clarify the
We
question?
have an example, this is applying to the spending. Do you have an example of how it would apply to the old?
Correct. The item that's in your packet is actually, it's a crosswalk between the old and the new model.
Could you explain that to me?
Okay, so similar to, I believe, what Ms. Castro presented, we're looking at the items in your packet. If you go from the top, you have an old rate versus new rate based on, the recommendations of the Fiscal Oversight Committee. The very first, the top column, if you will, I'll just go from bottom to top, or excuse me, top to bottom. The very first column shows the differences in rates. And again, this was comparing the second interim data that was presented to, I believe, the joint meeting at the last meeting. So we've used the same figures. We haven't necessarily utilized the proposed budget figures that you see in your packet this morning, because we wanted to, take a snapshot in time and really show you apples to apples comparison. Table 2 actually shows, if you look from district number of services, those were at the December 1st, 2011 count. We have the darkening column there is what we would call the new column, if you will, the new rates. Then as you go to the right, you have current year revenue. From that point forward, it looks like that's in the old model. Current year revenue, utilization of beginning balance in the current year, and then the total cost to district in the current year. That total in that column is really the old rates and how it's all comprised together. So as Ms. Berla mentioned, comparing the same costs, $24,991,000, you see that total out there on the right-hand side as well when we're doing that crosswalk. So the same costs are there, it's just how it's being distributed is where the difference really lies.
Right.
And I think that's, I'm not sure if that was your question at the last meeting, but out on the right-hand column, you could see where Ms. Berla mentioned that there's some districts that are seeing an increase, some are seeing a decrease.
And that was our question the last time, because we both had concerns about it. So using the new model, then I could look at my district, Mountain View, and the difference between the old and new based on these rates and so forth. I'd be paying an increase of about $13,000.
Correct, Mr. President. That's correct.
So the second to last column there is kind of like what it would be under the current model. The first column would be the new and the minus one, which shows the difference.
Can I just ask about the history of it? I know it was requested that we do the study and do the line. Where did that come from and what was the purpose of that? Who requested that and why did we do that?
I think the study was originally requested at the time because there was some concern as to the cost of the county program, and there was a question as to how the county rates compare to other rates across the state. And so we had FICMET come in to look at the county rates. They did, their findings did indicate that essentially the rates were comparable to other county-operated programs, particularly of the same size. And they had a few recommendations for cost savings, which I think the county has put in place. One had to do with the number of days school psychologists work. Well, we all had furloughs, so that took care of that. And the other was OTs, and I believe and Peggy's addressed that. And but they also had a concern that there had never been a point in time when, or there hadn't been in a long time, when the county went back and actually figured out the exact cost of the program. And I believe, I know a couple of years ago, Janet had brought up an issue, a question, that special day classes were really supplementing the cost for related services. So, and at, at that time, I don't think anyone, really thought too much about it. It wasn't anything moved forward. So, what she did was just break out the cost of each of the actual programs. You could, look at saying, I'm happy to, break out these costs based on what the actual cost is, but do it a little differently. But one of the concerns had been, like, preschool, why do I pay the same rate for a 3-hour class as I pay for a 6-hour class? So that was broken out. Well, a number of our districts have now taken back their preschool classes and operate them on their own. So a couple of years ago, it would have been a cost savings for them. At this point, they don't realize that benefit. But, I mean, you could say, I think, the low incidence, all the DIS services should be put together in one pot instead of breaking them out in 2 different ways. It's all going to come to the total cost of the program's not going to change, but how you share the costs could change.
I remember being supportive of breaking the fees out, because not all students were receiving all services, so to me that seemed more fair. But I have a question about the non-intensive, the intensive autism. Is there a non-intensive autism?
Not in preschool.
In preschool?
There are autistic children placed in other programs. So just because a child has the eligibility of autistic, they could be in other preschool programs. These are the students that would require this highly structured class.
So the rate for the students who are not in the intensive would be the special day class rate?
That's correct.
Either that or the preschool.
So I'm just trying to figure out the classes I see, the kind of classes on our campuses, are those intensive and non-intensive?
All the intensive are at the Frost and Mulberry and Live Oak.
Okay.
So any over at Florida would be
SDC.
Yeah.
Thank you. Could a student in intensive autism, could they be charged, the district is charged the intensive autism fee and a 1-to-1 aid fee? Or because there's a smaller ratio in that class, there's not a 1-to-1?
It's not a 1-to-1, and then you have a 2-to-1 ratio and a resident class.
Thank you.
Well, at this budget crunch time, this is kind of a big deal, so, other questions or?
Just on the rationale on the rate, I know it's not a big differential, but on the intensive individual, that's the 1-to-1 ratio. Is that just kind of the average of a paraeducator to serve as a one-on-one? Is that how we got to the 31,508? And some analysis of averaging paraeducator salaries?
I'm not really positive if that's really the phenomenon. What we've done is we've obviously established the total cost of the program and then done a division of the amount of services.
So X amount of tracker, or individual, I'm assuming this is the 1-to-1, correct?
I believe it is.
Correct.
Yeah,
Salary, benefits,
Right.
statutory.
Even on your loss
statutory
sheet,
costs.
Okay,
in
so you just took
column
the
F, it
number
shows
of
the
folks
costs that went into
Correct.
that.
and then made the average from that? Because, we all have different salary schedules and
Yeah, sure.
benefit contributions are different, so it's, yeah. Okay.
It's a paraeducator level salary benefit.
Certainly the concern is the increase in cost for especially the smaller districts. And I'm not trying to throw a wrench into this, but what are our other options? We have some districts saving, quite substantial amounts of money
some options could be that you could collapse some of the costs back together again the way they were. Whether that's equitable or not, you could perhaps put a plan forward where you could phase this rate change in so that there's a little softer landing for some people. Those would be the only two options I can really think of.
The other thing I think we could do is look at where the allocated costs being placed.
Yeah.
You know, which is the administrative costs, mileage and all that kind of thing. Are those also been spread across equally?
They've been spread across by percentage of students in that program.
All right, but on the spreadsheet, I do not see allocated costs in the community day school. But that's why I'm saying perhaps we could look at allocated costs.
Okay, yeah.
Well, because the Fiscal Oversight Committee has reviewed this already and has made the recommendation, and we've had our staff look at it. And as a K-8 district that doesn't like to see their new rate being increased from the old rate, I think there is a reason why the unifieds or the high school districts have higher ADA allocations because of their secondary program, the 9 through 12. So I'm sure the differential is comparable to that rationale. So I don't know if I want to, I don't want to say incur more time into further analysis when a lot of the work has already been done, and it is probably going to be an increase to OMSD. And, netting out the costs, in this case with neighborhood environments, will provide further rationale for what we see as far as OMSD is already an increase with the old rate. So for us, we're ready to move on. So, but I don't know how the other K-8s would feel.
I mean, it's a philosophical issue, really. There's no right or wrong. It's a matter of, as a SELPA, do you share costs, how you share those costs, or, so, it's basically, however you want to do it.
So the suggestion was to bring back some options. Do you want to see options? I'm not sure exactly how allocate cost they would do to the community day school rate.
And without looking at it, I don't know either. The allocated cost is typically a percent of the principal's time, the school psychologist's time, those kinds of things by program. They do spend less time in community day school, but in this spreadsheet, I don't see anything allocated there for allocated costs for special ed.
Yeah, I don't recall, I believe partly that was because the principals from for those schools were in the budget information she rolled up into here.
And that could well be. I'm sure Jan has a reason. I just don't know what it is, so I can't articulate it today.
So if we get an answer to that question and we wait and do this at the June meeting, who does that hold up? Is it a budget issue? Is it a...
It holds up when I go ahead and do your projections for next year. I know districts are kind of waiting for our next year's projections. This will definitely have an effect on what I can provide. I mean, at this point in time, what I would most likely do, since there is not a decision, I would leave everything with I would project the current rates that we have today, because nothing new has been approved. But once there's any type of a change, it will definitely affect, the actual state and many state dollars that you're going to be receiving. So probably the biggest factor that's taken off the top for the revenue that you're receiving is the fee for service. So it's a big piece. We can go with it however you want. We can make those projections, but just to know how to move forward.
For me, I'm torn because I know that the rate is weighted based on the types of disabilities and needs that we have, and I also know that I'm like this all the time, depending on my counts and what kind of kids I have, but if it's equally distributed and that the weight is the same based on the need of the program, you win and you lose sometimes, so I'd probably go with the program as it is. I mean, I'm losing $30 see what impact it would have on me, because I do have a concern that I watch every penny, but I also know that it can also fluctuate based on the types of needs that I have and the students that come into my district at any given school year. And so I could win one school year with kids that don't have as significant needs, and next year I lose. But if it's equally, and we're sharing the issue, then we're sharing it equally. So,
It's very true. It's done
Yeah.
so differently, SELPA to SELPA. Some SELPAs don't break this out at all. It's just here's your charge for special day class. And if they need speech or whatever, you know, get a separate charge. But the charge is higher to cover it all. You know, so there's lots of ways to do it. The point is very well taken. Great. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve as recommended.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? And we'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? No. 2 noes. Motion carries. Okay. 12-13 meeting dates. We need a motion to accept those.
Yes.
Is there a motion to accept the new meeting dates for the school year? Moved. Second. Second. All in favor? Motion carries. And we are now going to discuss to a closed session.